Hey my dear friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Today we are test driving the 2022 Toyota 4Runner, and this is a new trim grade called the TRD Sport. The limited looks, the limited stuff, but for less money. So I'm going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a test drive, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think. All right, my friends, before we get out on the test drive, let's talk about what we've got here, because this is the all-new 2022 Toyota 4Runner. I know what you're thinking. It's not all new. That looks just like the same 4Runner I've been looking at since 2015. Well, the fact is, you'd be right. They haven't redesigned this thing in forever. But what they've done this year is they've added a new trim grade, this being the TRD Sport. As tested, we're at $45,000 and some change. And so what that tells us here is that this is a vehicle that's based on one of the lower end trim grades. This starts with the SR5, which is the entry-level trim grade, but adds a lot of the styling elements that are known from the top end Limited, that being the front fascia. When you look at the face, it looks very much like the Limited, except here, everything is monochrome. The strips in the bumper, the grille surround, all of those things, a nice monochromatic look. And those are accented, of course, with some new LED headlights that are both high and low beam LED fog lights. And you can see the hood scoop up on the hood. So it's got the look of the Limited, but with a little bit of a fresh tint. Coming around the corner, you can see that body color trim goes into the fender arches and down the side rockers. Most importantly, though, here on the side that comes from the Limited is the larger 20-inch wheels, a very handsome wheel. From this angle, of course, just like the front, this looks very much like a 4Runner Limited, except for here it says TRD Sport on the pillar. Coming around to the very back, one of my favorite things with the 4Runner, always dating way back to the 1980s, and it's still here, is the power roll-down rear window in that rear gate. The interior of the 4Runner TRD Sport is basic because it is based on the SR5 trim grade. There are a few upgrades in here that come with the TRD Sport trim, those being the Softex seats that I'm sitting on. It is power adjustable for the driver, it's manual for the passenger, but the rest of this interior is essentially SR5, which means we're devoid of a lot of the frilly features that you're going to find in the Limited. Sitting here, I'm very comfortable. The power seat does have a good adjustment range. I am struck looking around this interior at the fact that it looks very much like the 1990s, back when this was designed. It's had a few upgrades over the years, and the center stack has been slightly tweaked since the last time I drove a 4Runner, but when you sit in this thing, you can't help but to think 1990s. There's a digital clock up at the top of the center stack, for crying out loud. But it's not a bad thing. It's well done 90s. As I sit here and look forward, a very well done 90s instrument cluster. 2 dials, a very small center screen, and the big steering wheel in my hands has plenty of controls on it for all of the features. And this does have the latest generation of the Toyota Safety Sense, so there are buttons here to control some of those things. Outward visibility, like all 4Runners, it's actually not too bad. You can see over the hood and you can see the corners of the hood, and all your switchgear and controls are easily located. The center stack, very tall, very truck-like. The buttons and the knobs are very big. You can use work gloves to control most everything here, and the controller for the transfer case is down in the lower part of the console. While there are a lot of little storage cubbies in this console, none of them are really big enough for your phone. You can put one here, you can put it down here, but it's just not convenient. So again, the age thing is sort of coming into play there. There's one cup holder in front, one in the back. And when we open the storage area here, there's actually a pretty good amount of storage in here. Probably room for one square tissue box and one rectangular tissue box and a few other little things. So in addition to the ports and all the plugs that are in there, plenty of utility going on here. Sitting in the back of the 4Runner is actually not an unpleasant experience. The seating height is actually very good. You're never feeling like you're sitting down in a hole or in a cramped spot, and the headroom is pretty generous. I've got about 3 to 4 inches over the top of my head. These seats are set for my height, about 5'8", 5'9" with my boots on. I've got plenty of leg room, as you can see. And the amenities back here, even in this particular trim grade, are good. There are air vents back here. There are 2 USB ports. There are some really nice map pockets on the backs of these seats. And there is a fold down armrest with cup holders here in the center. Now you can sit 3 across. This is a pretty flat seat, so your center passenger is probably not going to be terribly uncomfortable, as in some cars that have more contoured seats. Of course, you can fold these down in a 60-40 split. They actually sort of fold and tumble forward just a little bit. And look at the cargo area back there. This has a nice tray mat in the back on this particular one. And when you look around, there's a lot of storage cubbies and a lot of plugs and utility going on in this cargo area. Spare tire, full-size spare tire, that you can find underneath the vehicle. When it comes to rating this interior, yes, it's old. Yes, it's been around for a while, but the quality and the fit and finish is everything you'd expect from Toyota. A lot of hard plastics, but they've actually made the trims good and hard and solid in the areas where you want them. The switchgear is of an expected good quality. Even in this trim grade, it's got everything that I want. You know, as I mentioned, I like the fact that we've got the SR5 basics, but some of the limited nuts and bolts. That really makes this a nice package. This interior gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system we have here is one of the things that is starting to show its age. There's an 8-inch center screen. It does have a lot of hard controls on either side. It's got a tuning knob and a power knob. I love that. And this does have the upgrade to the premium audio. But where this system really lets me down is the fact that a lot of the feature content that it does have is subscription based. And Toyota just loves to do this, where they give you all kinds of cool stuff that actually comes free on your cell phone, oddly enough. But you have to subscribe to get it, like navigation, the live navigation and things like that. You know, there's a lot of things here that the other manufacturers don't make you do a subscription to get, especially in this price range. We have Android Auto and we have Apple CarPlay, but it still is wired in this case. And I did find the audio quality to be reasonably good, but for the price of this upgrade, I'm just not sure it's quite all the way there. It didn't sound like premium audio to me. So this system gets 3.5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, now it's time to take a drive. And if you watch my videos, you know the question I love to ask is, how does it go? So we're coming to a complete stop, nobody around, and go. Boy, it's working. You can hear that. And 60. All right. So what we've got under the hood here is the venerable, meaning it's been around for a while, 4-liter V6. It has 270 horsepower, 278 pound-feet of torque, and here it comes mated to a pretty old 5-speed automatic transmission. Pretty uncommon to find these things around anymore. And so that's one of the reasons this thing really groans and moans when you're driving it around, because that engine is not at its sweet spot as many times as it would be if it had 8 or a 10-speed, even a 6-speed automatic transmission. So what that translates to is a vehicle that has an engine that's working pretty hard. It's not nearly as powerful as many of the competitors in this class now, and it's going through less gears to get you there. It's rated at 16 city, 19 highway, and 17 combined. In my week with it, I barely got 16. So it's a pretty thirsty vehicle, especially given the fact that it doesn't have as much power as, say, a Jeep Wrangler or a Ford Bronco is available with. And this is the only engine you can get in the 4Runner. Now, it's not all bad, but it is an engine that's showing its age. It is a powertrain that's showing its age. That said, benefit, there's no auto start-stop system here. You can stop and go around in city traffic, and you're never going to have the air conditioner cut off on you. You're never going to have this engine starting and stopping and driving you bonkers like those aforementioned competitors have. So it's got some pluses and minuses. The bottom line is it's not the latest, greatest powertrain that Toyota offers. This powertrain gets 3.5 out of 5 stars. On the topic of ride, drive, and handling, this is a chassis that's been around for a long time, just like the powertrain. Not a bad thing. In fact, it's arguably one of the best in the business. It is a ladder frame, body-on-frame construction. The rear axle is a solid rear axle with multiple links locating it, and we've got an independent front suspension. This is probably one of the most refined vehicles in its class when it comes to stability, straight line directional stability, steering feel, all of the things that make up a vehicle that drives well on the street. The Jeep Wrangler, for example, well, that's a vehicle that, because it is so dialed in for off-road, and it's probably one of the best there, probably not the best on the street. But this has a lot of engineering design benefits that really give this thing an on-street drive that's superior in its class. And one of the things that this brings over from the limited trim grade is the cross-link shock absorber system. The shocks are diagonally linked with a line that sends the pressure from the right front shock to the left rear. Conversely, the left front shock to the right rear. And what that does is it allows the pressures to be moved around in such a way that it helps keep this thing stable. So basically, the goal of the system is to keep this thing from having so many rocking motions side to side and front to rear. So when you drive it around town, when you go over speed bumps, when you're off-road, it tends to have a much more stable persona. And that's from the limited trim grade. That's one of the bones that you get by going into the TRD Sport. The steering, all of these things are things that were designed probably 2 decades ago, but it still works. The ride's very quiet, and wind noise a little bit high, but not nearly as high as you might find in the Jeep Wrangler or the Ford Bronco. And with these larger 20-inch wheels and the tires that come on them, this does have an above average level of grip. So again, for street driving, this is the trim grade, along with the limited, that really gives you the best street feel. Overall, very well done for a vehicle that's been around this long and hasn't been completely retuned in a while. This chassis gets 4 out of 5 stars. Now, let's talk about value. And why wouldn't we? I mean, it's a Toyota, right? You go to Wikipedia and you type in value, and a picture of this thing comes up. Now, I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but Toyota they've earned that joke, right? They've got the longevity, they've got the build quality, they've got the reliability, and everyone who's owned one of these things swears it's the second coming of Christ. Now, I mean that sincerely. This is a vehicle that hasn't changed hardly at all, and we talked about that, right? It's old, yet it's got one of the highest resale values in its class. The Bronco is all new, it's out there. We've got the new Wrangler that was just introduced a couple years ago. Those have all been redesigned and they've got the latest, greatest stuff, yet this soldiers on, the old dog with its old tricks. Everyone loves it, it sells. You can't find a new one hardly at all right now, and if you try to buy a used one, well, you know. So, my point is, it's a great value. It always has been, and it probably always will be. The TRD Sport packaging that they've done here, I really like it. Limited Lite, I call it. I think it's great. I like the suspension and the looks and the wheels and all of that without having to spend money for all the extra stuff that you don't need. So I really think they're going to sell quite a few of these. So good luck buying one. But I put value right up there, 4.5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with all the old stuff we talked about, we're at a total of 4 out of 5 stars for the review. Still very good. So there you go. Toyota 4Runner TRD Sport. Now, if you liked the video you just saw, please see my latest one right there, or better yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.